The new look Astralis lineup featuring Config and Gla1ve and of course Ave as a coach, who I notice people keep forgetting about her when they're mentioning, no more Zonic, has played 3 lands already. And so I thought, you know what, let's do an assessment of where they're at and where they're headed. Now, normally, I would make a move like this before they ever play a tournament, when the lineup's just announced, etc. And quite frankly, I wish I had, because I was very sceptical when I saw this lineup being put together. And I remember thinking, oh, what is Config in particular doing with his career? I mean, forget the idea of, like, what's Gla1ve doing, signing himself up to all this? Shame Zipnix doesn't seem to care anymore. Are we really just playing this lucky guy? The reason why I wish I'd made this is because I did do a live desk before they played their series against Nip at the Blast Fall Finals. And I thought Nip was just going to cruise them and smash them 2-0, easy business. And this brand new lineup would do nothing. So what's funny is, if you just saw that video and then saw the match, you think, this aged well. It's like, well, just wait, because the next 2 tournaments came along. And you know what? Looked pretty ass, right? We've had 3 lands. So I do think it's a very flawed lineup. I think it'll be nowhere close, like not even in the conversation with the great Astralis lineups. Remember, won majors, were top 2 or 3 teams in the world, elite squads, consistently great, amazing pieces across the board. It's not going to be anything like that. This is just going to be just an also-ran team as far as I can tell. It's got a little bit of potential, but even then it has to basically max out a whole bunch to get anywhere close to, I would say, like semis of big tournaments, etc. Once we get the real circuit going, not all these dead lineups, and at the end of the year. So if you look at the results they've had, I always say, although I will admit I've still not made the video about it yet, sadly, after 3 to 4 lands, that's when we know who you are. Now, Astralis has played 3 already, so in theory we're sort of in that vein. With that said, I will say these lands are all in a very short time span, so not much time between the lands to work on stuff, although the usual land circuit was like that back in the day. I think they said they had, like a week to 10 days practice or something from the major coming into Blast Fall, so again, not much time overall. This is basically just whatever the first idea was, a little bit of prac, and then just trying it again and again in tournaments, and hasn't worked that well. So to be fair, if they'd have only had 1 LAN here and it was just Blast Fall, I mean, if they'd have failed it completely like they did IM Winter, I wouldn't have gone, see, proves the lamp can never work. But similarly, they came 3rd place at Blast Fall and looked pretty good. I'm not going to go, wow, that fluke means actually I'm wrong about everything. Fundamentally, I know about those players in Counter-Strike and the style and all my intuition, and so fuck it, actually they're going to be a bit... No, definitely not. So let's get into this. Because the context of the Astralis team before they made these player changes, remember, going into the major, was they were irrelevant. They were 0-2 in the first phase of the major. They were nowhere close, realistically, if you look at the teams they were playing and how they would have had to play, to actually making top 8 of the major. And they had no business being. They were an irrelevant team that was not good. Even worse, they were a team that had never played together. A lot of people don't know that 5-man lineup had never played together before, because in the past, when they'd had Gla1ve in the lineup, they'd obviously had Bobski, and then you can have Lucky, but that's Lucky when you have other players. So in this scenario, it's like, you never had this particular lineup. In fact, it's not even the team, if people don't know, that actually qualified for the major. There was no Gla1ve at the RMR. It was Megas who was the IGL, and they had Bobski and Lucky, and they qualified. By the way, even just qualifying was a big deal for that lineup. Like, I actually thought it was quite impressive from the Bobski lineup, because they didn't have Gla1ve, Megas was IGLing, and then, quite frankly, they were never going to maintain that form anyway. Like, if you go and look in the group stage of the RMR where they did the heavy lifting, they basically just fragged out completely in a way that those players just didn't elsewhere. But you go to the major, they weren't very good there. Now, it was bullshit the way the Astralis org tried to sort of spin it in the Danish media, that they were like actually benching legendary players like Megisk and Dupree on the basis of that performance, and then implying like they're replacing them now or choosing not to re-sign them. Just nonsense. People already know the story that apparently they're going to Vitality. I'd imagine they made that choice. I'd imagine if they wanted to stay, they both had the offer, if I had to guess. I just think that, quite frankly, Astralis can't pay for them, and or they aren't just people who, just like Zipnix or Gla1ve, just only want the bag. Maybe they can pay, but then it's not a good team anymore. Maybe they want money and to succeed. Revolutionary idea, right? But props to those guys for leaving. So you come along to the first tournament we had with this Astralis team, which was the Blast Fall Finals. As I said before, they finished 3rd, so that's pretty epic when you look at the lineup of teams there. No one would think they'd do that well. They beat Nip 2-0. Nip looked really bad in that particular series. They lost to Vitality in 3 maps, but okay, it took them 3 maps. You see now, actually, Vitality went on to be a fantastic team at this time period. Came 2nd at this event. They beat FaZe Clan in 3 maps. Okay, bit up and down, but whatever. On paper, you'd say FaZe Clan should have beaten them. Beat Heroic 2-0, which is a massive one. Sure, we had the whole crowd element, which definitely impacted this game. Like, that second map, that wasn't the Heroic I've seen for months at this point in time. But that's a big win. That's one of the best teams in the world. And, oh, by the way, Heroic had just finished beating out quality teams himself and going 3 maps with Na'Vi beforehand. Then they lost in 3 maps again to Vitality to finish 3rd. Now, I will say, the first time they played Vitality, they actually could have won that series 2-0. So this run that they had here, I mean, I still don't think they could have gotten better than 3rd realistically. I think Vitality should have beaten them that second time around. But they could have done a better run in the upper bracket itself. Now, I will say, the problem with that event, and this is the tough thing if you're a Astralis fan, because that was the best event they've had with this lineup, is it was one of the most unique events to ever be played. Because the crowd wasn't just biased, they were insanely biased when Astralis was playing, only for Astralis. So even when other Danes, like Carrigan, like fucking Heroic, who's a better team right now, even when they played against Astralis, the fans were still basically exclusively cheating for Astralis and against the other team, and they weren't even giving the other team any help. So it wasn't even a fair set of circumstances. So as a result, that did skew that event so much. Not only did it look like on CT sides when they were getting the kills off, the players from Astralis were super buoyed up by the crowd, but then also the opponent was mentally destroyed, particularly in the case of the Heroic game. Fair play to Vitality, they don't give a fuck. And on top of that, it's still not like they had the T sides on Astralis. So to me, if that's your best event, that's when everything goes amazing. Config has unreal, like simple level numbers in terms of the amount of kills per round. Blame F frags out as his first tournament not being an IGL for years and years. You have all these factors going on. Lucky wins a bunch of clutches. You come 3rd, but you have a massive crowd cheating effect. And it's your first LAN when no one knows what to expect from you. There's only people who played you in scrims and there's no official demos to work off. Right? Boys, if you thought that was like the start of a trajectory up, no, all those factors say sell. It's its highest. Sell now. It's going down. And what do you know? They came along to IM Winter. They finished 9th to 12th, which was second to last. They lost a best of 1 to Nip, so Nip already had bounced back. They beat Mousespots 2-0. Listen, Mousespots did win a lot of games at the major that I didn't think they would, but they're not a very good team. They're nowhere near an event winner. And they lost to Team Liquid 2-0 and got body bagged. Remember, Team Liquid famously hadn't won against Astralis in years. It was something meant like 900 days. That's many, many years, boys. And that's when Astralis had bad lineups, even like earlier this year, when the Fallen lineup managed to lose to the team that had a fucking Lucky in it. I remember thinking, what is this? There's not even Device, who was the guy who specifically used to kill you guys before. So to lose to Team Liquid's a really bad way to go out of any tournament, by the way. Even if Team Liquid sort of half the time looks decent, and the rest of the half of the time I'd be arguing about who's going to bloody go where and do what. Then, after being eliminated, I go to Blast World Finals, but the problem is no crowd, no stage element even. This just like IM Winter was a studio LAN. It wasn't a LAN with a big crowd at it. And you know what? They finished second to last again. There was only 8 teams at this one, so they finished 5th to 6th. They lost to Vitality, got 2-0'd. They beat NIP 2-1. This was the tournament, remember though, with no Device, the best player for NIP, who'd had some of the best stats at IM Winter to get NIP to the semi-finals before he had to go missing. And they still lost a map to fucking NIP without Device, by the way. And then they lost to the Team Liquid. Yes, again, back-to-back tournaments to be eliminated by Team Liquid. Think about that. You're Astralis and you're being eliminated by Team Liquid in like not even a top 4 finish. And it's not even a good Team Liquid, for fuck's sake. That should be a warning sign right now if you're an Astralis fan. So they got 2-0'd again. By the way, that means from all 3 lands, Astralis were eliminated by dead rosters. Vitality once and Team Liquid twice. They haven't won. Let me think. What was the actual stat? Let me think. The only maps they've actually won since the first land with all the crowd cheating was in the 2 series they won. They beat Mousespots 2-0 and they beat NIP 2-1. In the 3 best of 3 series, they lost at those 2 lands, the studio lands. They didn't win a single map, and they lost the best of 1 to Nip. In series, they're 5-5, so they're at an even rate at the moment. And in maps, they are -1. They've won 12 and they've lost 13. So let's go over the lineup. Config is where you have to start with, because of all these names, in terms of being a star player, he's the first name that comes to mind, because he's been a star player, a potential superstar. He was right on the borderline a couple of years ago when he was at his peak, maybe even when he was at his best in complexity at times. He was like that for a tournament or 2. Now, at the first event they had, he was going ham. This was some prime config shit, where he was just creating stuff, and they still had a terrible T-side, by the way, but he was just creating insane kills and multi-frag scenarios, and despite all that, they didn't have a great T-side, and they lost to a dead team, even though, yes, Vitality is certainly not just a dead team. They're probably the best dead team to ever play. Well, certainly one of them. There's been teams that won majors that were dead, to be fair. Now, the reason I bring this up is because in the following lands, he fucking sucked. He had a really hard time getting in the game. He maybe didn't look like he's totally come back from his time off. his injury, adapting to a new team. There's something was wrong here. Something was really wrong. It was quite alarming to me because he's a fantastically skilled player and his numbers were terrible. Then you have Bla1ve, the other big name, right? He's been fragging well. He's fragged well consistently throughout, but he still looks like he's trying to find his rhythm where he's not the IGL. The kills he has sometimes look like sometimes he's not in the right place at the right time. Some of them look a little bit like empty calories. I don't see a massive amount of impact from a lot of the kills he gets. So my problem is this. He looks like he can consistently frag just like he did when he was an IGL. But if he is going to be the only big fragger in the game, I'll tell you right now, Astralis is not only going to lose a ton of games, but they'll look bad in doing so. They won't be effective. He won't look that great either with the actual eye test. And he'll have good numbers, but you'll go and look and there won't be the highlights. It won't be a monster game with the actual eye test, I'm afraid. It'll just be a bunch of kills and they won't necessarily amount to much. So my problem in that sense is, look, props to him for overcoming being an IGL, but something's still not going right there. Now, if you had those two at peak power, not too far from what they were at the first event. By the way, Bla1ve technically, I think, had the flu at that event, so mad props to him for how he was fragging out. If those two were at peak power, that's actually enough in the star category, like you saw at Blast. The problem is, first of all, we don't know that the config scenario is getting fixed. Secondly, the rest of the team is massively flawed and really underpowered in terms of firepower. And config has not shown consistency. So if Gla1ve and config are your hot entry duo, if you go look at the amount of attempts and how much they try, etc., mate, this entry duo is nowhere near the big duos in the world. Like right now, that entry duo is getting nothing done. No wonder the T-sides are so fucking whack. In fact, let's go look at the players here. This is every single map they've played with this 5-man lineup. So you'll see, Bla1ve, good, but not superstar numbers. And like I say, bit of empty calories there. That's why he's always going to have a good plus-minus, because he's got a bit of a bait style as a lurker, right? Config, you can see there, not a great plus-minus. Obviously, his ratings go way down, but we know he can frag like a motherfucker like he did in the first tournament. And then Gla1ve's minus 72. Obviously, he's in the entry pack, so he's going to be dying a lot. You have Zipnix, who's supposed to be the clutch master, minus 32. Mega low amount of kills, doesn't even play in half the clutch round scenarios. And Lucky, the guy who did win a couple of clutches at Blast, doesn't use the AWP, doesn't get any kills with it. He has minus 35. So how are we going to deal with that? Where's the fucking firepower when you have this team? There isn't any, is there? So let's talk about this, because the third player after config and Bla1ve, logically is Lucky if we're talking firepower, right? Because he is replacing Device, who was the old player who used to win all the MVPs. He's coming in as an AWPer. He came in as a primary AWPer. You have to be a star if you're a primary AWPer. Otherwise, your team is going to be fundamentally flawed on some level, and you're going to have a hard time against the top 5 teams. And he plays, at least it looks like in this era, post-Bobski, like they put him in more supportive or stuck in an attic away from the fucking polite company so as not to offend type scenario, eating fucking fish heads up there. He's not even playing with the AWP. They fucking took the AWP from him. This guy is not a tier 1 AWPer. He's not a tier 1 player. He's not an experienced LAN player in any meaningful context. And he wasn't even AWPing when config and Bla1ve came to this lineup. They took the fucking AWP from him. First of all, Gla1ve looked like a better AWP against Heroic, but even he understood it wasn't going to work out after that. I have to give it up. Config himself looks like a better AWP when he does it. It's just why the fuck would you take such an insane rifler off the rifle and put him on an AWP? And quite frankly, if you believe the story that Lucky himself said, if you're like, I volunteered, like maybe I shouldn't use the AWP, like get the fuck out my face. That was his whole thing, was AWPing. That's the whole reason they got him in this team. That's the whole reason in theory he's playing instead of Bobski. Unless there's another reason, right? Old lie home. So my problem with this is, I think in the Blast tournament, Gla1ve's just a winner. So he said, fuck it, for this game, I'll take the AWP. He used it in a way people didn't expect. He got a bunch of kills off and he was feeling himself. He carried that one series. Even he knew you're not going to catch lightning in a bottle 2, 3, 4, 5 times, unlike what MSL stupidly thought back in 2018, I think it would have been. So my problem here is, this is just Astralis org fuckery when we talk about Lucky specifically, right? He's the obvious odd man out. Like, is he here because they want to try and flip him like they wanted to do with Bobski? Could be. Is he here to actually replace Device? If so, that is not only insane hubris to think you could just pick a random AWPer from Denmark and he's going to become the new Device. What hubris there is in that. But also how utterly fucking delusional, what an appalling GM / front office this particular organisation must have if they really believe that. Did they get him to pump the stock price by appearing like they can take these new talents and develop them and build a pipeline from the low levels and maybe one day the academy squad? Because the irony of that, by the way, is they had a player who actually played at tier 1 who was in their academy squad. His name was Zyrathenia. He plays for fucking Copenhagen Flames. Astralis showed no interest in him, so kind of shows what an utterly whack scenario this Lucky saga is, isn't it? By the way, here's a stat for you. Over those 3 lands, obviously Lucky was not being given the AWP. He has 0 kills over those 3 lands. This is silly, boys. This is just silly. Energy formula, absolutely no sugar, gamer. Game us ups. Code Thorin, Thorin, at Game us ups at GG for 10% off. Now, Gla1ve, obviously we have to talk about him because if we talk about conditions that could make you a great team, you say the name Gla1ve, perfect. I got my IGL nailed, greatest of all time, right? Well, the T-sides are non-existent, my dude. Where are they? I don't pay you this enormous money and this giant contract of no T-sides. What the fuck are your Gla1ve? What is this? Carrigan, by the way, never gets a break no matter what lineup he's on, no matter who he's playing with. He's playing with the bad mouth spots. People are like, if he's that good, right, he win tournaments. Gla1ve had fucking 4, including himself, 4 of the players that had won 3 majors in a row, and he wasn't able to do anything at the major. Why isn't it work that way? So let's be fair. If we're going to scrutinise people based on the results, let's talk about the results Gla1ve's teams are having. By the way, because they have no T-side, they get blown out in half their fucking games. They're not a team that's like playing awesome CS and they're always it. No. Flip a coin sometimes they don't show up at all. So the question with Gla1ve is, by signing this mega long contract, yes, we know he's having a family, maybe he wants to settle down. That's all great, but that can't be the primary consideration in your career. Like, is he actually trying to win? Does he want to be the best? Will he actually go the hard yards? Will he be ruthless with the people that needs to be ruthless? Will he actually be someone who has like this on the cutting edge of the game and developing these, or will he just now get paid a nice amount of money, do a great job individually calling in the spur of the moment, watch some demos, do what he can with the players, but he ain't a miracle worker, he's just an in-game leader, and then just see the results and go, who gives a fuck? I'm flashing 4 rings anyway, baby. I even won a fucking MVP at a tournament I played once in Tier 1. Maybe that's who Gla1ve's going to be now. Maybe he'll just be a very good in-game leader. He'll just live and die off that, right? Remember the Zonic factor. Ave did it all with Zonic. Now, except if you want to talk about Western Wolves years and years ago, so I know he can be a great in-game leader. I don't know if he can be the GOAT, though. That's yet to be seen. Because everyone tells me Zonic's the GOAT coach. It certainly seems like it makes sense. So is everyone the GOAT simultaneously? I've gone through this before. So what I have to say here is I'm interested to see what he'll do without Zonic and with different star players. By the way, seeing him with Config, if he's on his game, very, very promising factor. I always wanted to see either Gla1ve or Carrigan take Config. Because for me, Config had the best raw skill of any Danish player to ever play CSGO. So I always wanted to see one of the great IGLs take him and then use him as the superstar to go to the top and win all the championships. So let's see if Gla1ve can do it. Then there's one name left, isn't there? Because by the way, let's just go ahead and say it. I know Gla1ve was, and most of his career, be a pretty good fragging IGL. He hasn't been great fragging in this particular team so far, minus that up series against Heroic. So Zipnix, mate, when we're putting Zipnix last and we're talking about him the way I'm about to talk him, you know this team's in so much trouble. He's the guy that would be your insurance policy. He'd save you around a half a game if you needed him to. He'd be the guy where we've already got really good players elsewhere in the past short slaps. And then we're like, right, and the last guy is Zipnix. Oh, wait a minute, isn't he the best at the last roll and rounding out a team? He isn't any of those things anymore. Now he loses Astralis games. He's terrible fragging. He looks totally washed, like he doesn't even care anymore. He's not even the clutch minister. He doesn't win clutches. Like, it just barely happens. Lockie's even cocking him and taking him and baiting him in the clutches and then winning the clutches from him. Rarely. Obviously, I'm talking about Blast primarily there. That ain't a good look for anyone. Like, why is Zipnix here? As far as I can tell, he's here so they can still claim we have 2 of the players that won 4 majors. That's a great marketing angle. Problem is, he looks checked out as fuck. He looks like he got an enormous contract, one of the longest in CSGO history. He got the bag. He got his nice big salary. He's won loads in the past. He doesn't have the star players to win anything anyway. So the guy's just going to mail it in. He's going to phone it in. Now, I certainly hope he doesn't because he was a great player, especially relative to his role, one of the greatest at his role. So I certainly hope this isn't it for him. And I hope maybe this is just an initial funk. He's got all the deals done now. Maybe in 3 or 4 months he comes back around. But right now there are no signs to show as much. He doesn't even seem to really even be mad or seem like he knows there's anything wrong. He's just, la la la, I got all of my money squared away. Yeah, exactly. Enough said. There's a reason why certain jobs, you actually have to do the job first before people pay you at the end, eh? Now then you've got the coach, who, as I say, everyone else has forgotten. The problem is this. If we're talking about in-game leaders, Ave might be the best in-game leader to ever play Counter-Strike. He was phenomenal in 1.6, but 1.6 is such a fundamentally different game, especially in terms of he used to be the master of anti-stratting, knowing everything an opponent does, what the current meta is, what the newest flashes, smokes, anti-flashes are. He isn't that guy in CSGO, or at least when he's tried to be, it hasn't worked. Like, he showed some promise in North. Look, if you can win an event like DreamHack Stockholm 2018 with fucking MSL AWPing, and you can beat Astralis twice in their prime in best of threes on LAN, yeah, you certainly done something. The problem is, elsewhere, they were mad ropey, some of those results. So I also think some of the things I've heard from behind the scenes, that he had like some advanced stats engine he'd made and he was using like advanced stats in some way and making all formulas. That sounded very interesting. That sounded like maybe there's something he can find there, and he's had years to do it now. The problem is, he isn't Zonic, And we have to find out yet who he is going to become, and what his style's going to be, and what his approach is going to be. Because I'll even throw one more thing in, which is Zonic seemed to do a very good job managing Astralis. He seemed to actually keep people's egos in check, keep them motivated, great sort of like father figure, like shoulder to cry on, but also a sterner figure if you need someone to discipline. I don't know if Abe's that guy, actually. Abe, to me, always seemed more like the kind of guy where you just trust him because he's the smartest, he knows everything about the strats. So of course you do what he says. He hasn't got that credibility right now. He hasn't got that status in this game. He hasn't been a great in-game leader in CSGO, or for that matter, a great coach, I would argue. So I think he's got to earn his respect from some of these people in this team. I think it's not going to be as easy as you think. So the problem is, Astralis is low fragging. It ain't looking great. Like, I can't really see where the firepower comes from, unless they replace Lucky. They have no true superstar, so you're already going to have your issues against the Zwus, fucking Simple, Nikos of the world. They have star duo issues. The entry duo's a bit whack. The T-sides kind of suck. The IGL doesn't seem like he's figured it out. They have no primary AWPer. They have a player who has no business being in the team in Lucky. And then Zipnix looks like he's checked out and he's just phoning it in. He's got the bag. Here's what I would ask you. Flip it the other way, guys. Forget the name Astralis. Imagine I just tell you I'm making a brand new lineup tomorrow. I had the money, in theory, to buy whoever I want. Anyone from the Danish scene can be in the team. And here's the team I'm building. So my primary AWPer is Lucky, but he's not even going to AWP. Zipnik's going to sign him long term, but he's in his worst career form. Gla1ve will sign him, but we don't know where his motivation is, and we've basically let the coach go already. The coach we don't know, and actually was technically banned for using the coach exploit. Blamef used to be an IGL, but he's going to try his hand at just being a star now. And then Config's amazing, but he broke his hand not that long ago, and only one of the lands has been... Like, why the fuck would they succeed? Think about it. Go the other way. What reasons are there for them to succeed? So, yeah, if Config frags out, they can do it. Okay, let's see if that can start to happen. I believe in him as a player. If Gla1ve's a mastermind, they can maybe start to do something. Okay, that can happen. That's not implausible. If Abe proves to be a great coach, they could do a lot. No, that one, the jury's massively out on that one. If Zipnix gets his shit together, the jury's completely out on that one. If Lucky can ever be viable, I mean, there's no reason he would be right now. I mean, at the end of the day, what is there to like about the new Astralis? There's Config. Okay, cool. He got a shot. There's Gla1ve still. I like Abe for historical reasons, but this team's so flawed. And if I had to guess, when you consider Vitality's upgrading with Megaskin, Dupree and Zonic, you consider G2's going to get possibly a great IGL, maybe one of the next great raw mechanic stars in a young player. If they're going to upgrade, if you're going to go down the line and look at things, if FaZe gets ROPS, etc., then Astralis is not going to be a top 10 team. They're not going to be a relevant team. They're not going to be a team challenging for titles. And if Config is going to frag out, then he'll frag out, but there'll be a team that's just an also-ran, and he'll just be one of those players like, oh, wow, he's like ranked 12th in the world this year. He could have been like 6th or 7th, but they didn't really get far enough in tournaments, did they? So his sample size is too small, or, nah, they didn't qualify for all the big tournaments. They had to win this tier. Like, yeah, exactly. That's not Astralis, dude. They've ruined Astralis. Like, I'm certainly going to watch some of these players that I like, but this ain't Astralis, mate. I can't say it's the worst Astralis lineup ever, because they once had a line that had Yugi and Snappy in it. But in terms of like worst real Astralis lineups, I don't know, because I feel like even the lineup they had with Bobski when they were playing when Device left seemed better than this. Like, it still had like a core essence to it. Some of the identity of the team still made sense. This is one of the worst teams Astralis has ever put together.
Hey guys, this is Pimp here. I got another little trick for you guys. I heard about this channel on YouTube that has a lot of good analysis on it. You know, a lot of good points to be made, and fuck, I did it again. It's just Thorin's stupid YouTube channel.
This video was kindly supported by Iskander, Lager15, Matt Pugnatio, Rajcula, Travis Goff, Zack Schmidt, Adam Ochs, Animosity, Butt Pounder 420, Chronic Alcoholism, Hades, Jdubs, Jensen Goh, Joseph Ginsburg, Kovacevicd, Tobias Bernasconi, Zoomba, Zyrathenia, and of course, a special thanks goes out to Jerky's Minion and DZL. Do you want to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? You want to ask me a question? Maybe you want to know who the guests are for my upcoming content, or you'd like to take part in one of those long donated discussions. Well, put your money where your mouth is at the Patreon link in the description box below and join the Screwilluminati today.